Welcome to Bath, England, where we are in front of the Royal Crescent. The Royal Crescent was built by a man named John Wood, the Junior. There was also John Wood, the Senior. And the John Woods brought Palladian architecture to this beautiful place in England. And Palladian architecture is actually an Italian architecture, even though people say they're coming here to see Georgian architecture. Palladian architecture is one that really builds upon symmetry and our love of symmetry. So when you look at the Royal Crescent behind me, what we see is that kind of symmetrical work. And you can see no matter where you look, you find that symmetry. You can see the center point there where there's a little bit difference in the columns that are double, and then to either side is fully symmetrical. And maybe it is that our love of symmetry goes much deeper than what we think about on the sort of visual by the eye love of symmetry. In fact, maybe it is deep down in our DNA. In fact, every domain of life in its DNA has palindromes. So Palladian architecture, remember Palladian architecture, the symmetry, palindromes in DNA are also this sort of mirror image, if you will, but it's a little different in DNA. The symmetry is a little bit different because remember you have the coding strand that runs one direction and the template strand that runs in the opposite direction. Well, the symmetry is such that you can read it this way and it's the same, and you read it the opposite way on the template strand and it's the same. So as if you were standing on your head, it would look the same as if you were looking at it not on your head. So I've actually shown you a palindrome, a very famous palindrome in DNA, GAATTC. Look down here. GAATTC. So in the coding strand, GAATTC, and then in the template strand, if you were to stand on your head and look at it, it would look exactly the same. GA. So there is the symmetry, GAATTC, GAATTC. So there is the symmetry of a palindrome. And I said this is a famous palindrome because in fact it is the sequence that is recognized by an enzyme. This enzyme is a restriction endonuclease called EcoR1. Echo stands for E. coli. So E. coli utilizes this nuclease, this cutting and cleaving enzyme to cut sequences in invading DNA of viruses at every time it sees this. So when we look at this, the thing that I love so much about this symmetry, people often they use things like words like deed and radar to teach symmetry, to talk about palindromes. But in fact, this is so much better because it gives you the physical sensation of seeing this symmetry. And that's what an enzyme sees. And an enzyme like EcoR1 recognizes the physical symmetry. And so here in this sequence, it actually recognizes this physical symmetry and it cuts right after the G here and right after the G here. And it cuts that DNA apart. And as if you could picture this building getting cut so that this part of it, in fact, in World War II, this was bombed. So if, in fact, a restriction endonuclease would cut maybe like this, so that half of the building on the top floor went that way, and the bottom floor went the other way, leaving unpaired floors, unmatched floors. And that would be like what you would see here, a cut here. It would leave these no longer hydrogen bonded. And so these AATTs would no longer have their hydrogen bonding partners after that restriction endonuclease had cut it. So palindromes are present deep down in our DNA. Palladian architecture, symmetry, we love it.